Wonderful. Happy New Year and happy 2025 to all our listeners. Today we are back on the SEO Leadership webinar. We are so excited to be back. Darius and I have been itching away to start our webinars again. And today we have on a wonderful guest. We have Harriet, and she is going to be joining us today for our first episode back. She is the Senior SEO and DPR Manager at Lottie. She is passionate about building brands that make a difference. And interesting enough, she mentors at the Women in Tech SEO and is also an industry speaker as she spoke at Digital PR Summit and Digital Bytes. And she's also secured top tier media placements in outlets such as the BBC, Metro, and the Telegraph. So, Harriet, thank you so much for coming on and joining us on our first episode back in 2025. How are you keeping?
Yes, good. I think Christmas just feels so long ago now, doesn't it? We're back in full swing of the work. But yeah, all good from my side.
Awesome. Harriet, for our listeners that are tuning in, do you mind sort of giving a little bit of backstory on how you got into SEO? I know you were a content writer for a little bit as well, and how you got to where you are now at Lottie.
Of course. Yes, so my career in SEO started around 9 years ago. I was fresh out of university. I'd done a few kind of marketing stuff across my university kind of background, but my degree was actually in history, so nothing to do with marketing or SEO. But I always had a keen interest in marketing. And then across the kind of summer after I graduated, I was applying for general marketing roles, and I spotted one around kind of SEO and outreach at Bupa, applied for it. And yeah, I think that's kind of when the SEO career really started. I hadn't had too much experience. I was kind of self-taught on the very basics of SEO and the principles, a lot of kind of reading on Moz, etc. And I think one thing that really helped me kind of stand out is I had kind of created a few websites. Looking back, I probably don't even want to have a look at them. But I think that really helped me of just trying to kind of dip my feet in SEO, marketing, etc. And try and kind of almost be a bit self-taught, really. So I started there. I was there 6 years, progressed to the content marketing consultant, and then, left the corporate world of Bupa for the startup life at Lottie, joining the team almost 3 years ago. So lots of kind of different change going from corporate into a kind of SEO, content and digital PR role at Lottie. Definitely wouldn't change it. 2 very different roles, but lots of kind of key learnings in both. This is where I kind of lead the SEO and PR team at Lottie.
Awesome. One thing we spoke about a lot last year, and I sort of really wanted to touch on it with you, is the importance of side projects and any advice to SEOs that are looking to sort of build up their own portfolios. How did you sort of navigate side projects, and how did you sort of see the benefit and the fruit of that, especially from university going into Bupa as well?
Definitely. I think it's so important, especially it really helps you kind of stand out from the crowd. But also it's something that you can actually see that, whether you find it enjoyable or not. We know there's so many different areas across SEO, content, PR, etc. And I think that's where it kind of proves really invaluable. You can kind of find what you are passionate about, what you're kind of good at, what you need to kind of have more learnings towards. And I think it was never really like a profitable side hustle for me. It was more of just kind of learning and kind of testing out a few things, just getting to the grips of almost like the basics of CMS, and really trying to kind of understand how I could kind of be of value for, say, the likes of Bupa, Lottie, etc., and really trying to navigate almost like the online world now.
Awesome.
Brilliant. And obviously at the minute, SEO and digital PR, I know they're sort of obviously closely entwined, and a lot of campaigns, stuff like that, need both of them to work. But at the start, how did you manage learning both at the same time, or was it a factor of learning maybe SEO first and then digital PR came after? Because SEO in itself is quite a sort of beast to tackle, never mind adding like digital PR and managing both at the same time.
Definitely. I was really fortunate, especially at Bupa, where my role was kind of generalist SEO, but then started to specialize more in the digital PR and link building side of it. I think going into, especially 9 years ago at Bupa, I obviously had kind of very little SEO knowledge. So the first kind of part of that role from my manager as well was just to kind of learn the basics again. So I think it's always been quite intertwined in both roles I've done. And I think that's a really key learning, especially for Lottie, where I was very fortunate that going into Lottie, a very small kind of startup when I joined, the founders were really kind of, pro SEO, pro digital PR, and could really reap the benefits of it. And I think that's where it's always been intertwined. In the team that I currently manage, we have a person 100% on kind of digital PR and generalist PR as well, so kind of intertwining them both, but they sit within the SEO team as well. So everything is kind of from traditional link building to those kind of brand awareness digital PR campaigns that we're doing, that's generating kind of a lot of noise and brand awareness for Lottie. But it's always been that kind of intertwine, and I would argue that that's really positive in terms of just getting like a generalist kind of feel for SEO. A lot of the practices, especially for almost like the traditional link building, will be really relevant for obviously the best practices of digital PR, and then it's kind of more growing naturally into the positives and the kind of outcomes for general PR as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, because we were at quite a few talks last year, and a lot of them were like moving their teams from like silo teams into, like, as you mentioned, like more intertwined. So yeah, I think it's definitely the way forward, especially even if it's agency side, works a lot better for the clients and stuff like that. But yeah, obviously in-house as well is extremely important. You don't just have one person out by themselves.
Yeah.
I wanted to sort of build off of that as well, because I think it is quite interesting, just as Darius mentioned, the movement of SEO moving out from just being siloed as well. How do you manage the, I guess, teams and into cross-departmental communication as well? Has that been smooth sailing, or has there been any bumps? And do you have any advice to SEO leaders that are trying to sort of merge their teams or to have them collaborate more together?
Definitely. I think it's not been without its challenges, especially in the first instance. We kind of officially pivoted towards kind of Q3, Q4 last year at Lottie, where we had someone kind of 100% on PR. Prior to that, they were kind of doing both SEO and PR and kind of splitting their time evenly. And we just weren't really seeing that kind of true benefit, because it was just 50% on one, 50% on the other, where really they should be completely intertwined. The way we've kind of worked, so a new thing for kind of Lottie's SEO strategy, which covers PR and content as well, is working in team sprints. So every 2 weeks we work in sprints, which is obviously really agile for us, but ensures that what is visible on PR is visible to the SEO teams, and everything is working with that kind of one mission of driving that marketplace traffic and brand awareness. So we can kind of have full visibility. Every week there's kind of a sprint check-in as well, so we can see what is being actioned and what the outcome is, and there's always kind of a retro and a reflection as well each month. So we're finding it's working really positive, especially for kind of the start of January, and yeah, we're seeing that kind of positive benefits of having full visibility across PR, link building, as well as the kind of on-site technical content initiatives that we're putting through as well.
Awesome.
Excellent. And Harriet, obviously working in sort of sectors that you have done, especially with like Bupa, as you got to like that more senior, more sort of comfortable level, how important is it to get sign off as like quickly as possible? Because those are obviously very like sort of competitive niches, and usually with like in-house roles, it's sort of maybe a bit of a stereotype that like things do move a bit slower and sign off takes a lot. So is that the same with like those competitive niches, or are they usually a bit quicker?
Definitely. I think one thing that I noticed going from kind of Bupa to Lottie in the first instance was I had kind of flexibility of changing something directly on the website at Lottie. And I was so scared of kind of breaking the website or anything like that, like touch wood, I've never done that. But both are quite kind of regulated in its own kind of way. So obviously Bupa is heavily regulated by the FCA. So everything has a really stringent process. Yes, things take time, but we still kind of got to where we needed to be with it, despite kind of a lot of like the sign-offs that we had to do, especially across the digital PR stuff, which was a very new area, especially for Bupa. But coming to Lottie, I think I brought quite a lot of key learnings of we do need processes, we do need kind of, you know, peer reviews. Nothing can just go live on the website. Everything has to kind of have a thorough process to begin with. And I think that's one of the key benefits that Lottie has now, especially even with the sprint. Everything is really thorough. So week one is kind of like the audit week, so we're kind of getting everything that we want to kind of action for the week after, and then the second week is that kind of implementation, peer review, and then the following weeks will be kind of just ensuring that it's worked or any key learnings from that. The care sector in general is, again, very kind of regulated in its own right. You know, it's a very sensitive topic of people searching for care. It's so difficult. People don't realise until they're actually in it, of looking for a care home or a home care, etc. So I think they're both kind of strict in their own right of what we can and can't do, but it's all with the kind of positives of, you know, looking after the care seeker, looking after the user at Bupa, etc.
Excellent. No, I love that.
I wanted to sort of ask, in terms of your transition from Bupa to Lottie. It's quite interesting when leads or SEO senior SEO managers or SEO managers move from one company that's sort of established into an agency or a startup that's just beginning. Did you, when you were moving over, come with sort of a 90-day plan or anything that you sort of wanted to establish? Or how did you sort of, what was your onboarding like when you came to Lottie? And how did you sort of offer change as well when coming through?
Definitely. I think one of the very many benefits of Lottie was I kind of came in and the founders who were very kind of fans of SEO and the value of digital PR was kind of like, you can do almost whatever you want within reason, and kind of having that almost like free reign to plan and setting the processes in place. I think one thing that I really wanted to do from kind of the get-go, which was a challenge, especially because it was kind of an unknown startup at that point, was really drive that brand awareness, and kind of really create us as like an authority in the care sector space and social care. And, you know, with Bupa, you're kind of really heavy on that brand. It's a really trusted brand. People know Bupa, etc. So that was kind of a bit of a tough learning to go from Bupa to Lottie. But I'd say, especially looking back at the last kind of, 2.5, 3 years, we're definitely bringing more brand awareness for Lottie, doing a lot of different creative digital campaigns that we've been doing. And I think that's where we really want to kind of build that trust and using our internal data as well, to really showcasing like the cost of care, whether it's a care home, whether it's home care, to really kind of provide that value for users and care seekers across the UK.
Excellent.
Awesome.
And how, on that sort of journey, was there, obviously it's always, moving jobs always a slight risk, obviously a bit more of a risk when you are venturing into like a startup. Was there any sort of like initial fear? Because obviously, as you mentioned before, like Bupa, very well known brand, like a lot of sort of processes already in place. Was there a bit of like, what if, like almost like imposter syndrome, like what if I come in here and the processes aren't there, and there's a lot more sort of pressure, it's all on you, whereas at least in Bupa you can sort of lean on sort of team members and stuff like that. How was that sort of initial period for you?
100%. I think looking back, I was almost probably quite naive because I just saw it as almost a new challenge of I had the backing of the founders and almost kind of free reign to create this strategy and kind of lead and develop and hire the team members that we needed. So we started with a content executive and then hired like a senior SEO exec who then progressed actually into the PR manager. So I'm very fortunate that the team we kind of started with at Lottie is the team that we have now with a few additional members. But yeah, definitely looking back, I think I was quite naive with the transition, but I did just see it as a challenge. I'd actually argue that I think seeing from where Lottie has kind of grown over the last 2.5, 3 years, that's probably been the harder transition of almost you're kind of in it day in, day out, aren't you? And then trying to understand, okay, well, this is changing, or we need to kind of pivot for this. That's probably been the most hardest things, and especially for the team, to really kind of understand, okay, something that we may have been doing, you know, religiously for 6 months, we're going to pivot and change because we've got a new product or a new offering, or something that we want to change. And I think it's just making sure that there's clear communication from kind of, you know, top down, and just making sure that any direct reports are really clear on kind of the targets and the kind of pivots that we need to do and why.
Excellent. And obviously, when you mentioned about hiring there, when you get in, was it almost a matter of like you needed someone straight away, or did you get sort of the foundations in place? And then how did you know exactly? Obviously, you kind of work out what you need. And did it take much sort of buy-in from the founders to sort of start building that team, or was it pretty instant?
Yeah, I think I took a couple of months and then started hiring. I wanted to really understand almost what the SEO kind of value was as well, of what we needed to do. And I think one key thing that coming into Lottie, they had produced a few kind of blogs using a range of different freelancers. But one thing I really wanted to do from the get-go is ensuring that there's a clear tone of voice across, you know, there's just consistency with it. So I think that's where we were looking for a content executive, but again, under that kind of SEO. So they had the best practices in, they can work across the marketplace and the blog pages. And I think that's one thing, especially in a startup, but even the key learnings from Bupa as well, is it's not just about kind of SEO, whether that's technical, on-site or off-site. There's a multitude of different areas that SEO covers, and for the best practices. So I think how we've got it currently set up, and especially in like the strategy side, we've got an SEO offering, a content side of it, and then the PR side as well. So very kind of intertwined with one another, but all following those kind of best SEO practices.
Excellent. And just, sorry, I know Shrey has something lined up, but just out of curiosity, that sort of, you mentioned the brand tone of voice. Does that at the end of the day fall on you to get that right, or is that something that you discuss with like the owners and sort of have an idea of what they're looking for as well?
Yeah, I think especially going into a startup, it's almost like a free for all, isn't it? There's not too much kind of processes in place. But I've been very fortunate, especially with like the team at Lottie, that especially the founders have been so open of, you know, if you want to change this or adopt this, and even, you know, working with the team that many are actually there from 2.5 years ago to now, and just making sure that we almost, you know, didn't just kind of go wild and just through like a generic tone of voice and brand awareness piece. It was more kind of, you know, what can we actually do that's different for the sector? Kind of, pardon the pun, but the care sector is like an age-old sector. It's very traditional, and obviously Lottie wants to do something different. We want to bring transparency, and we want to bring additional value for the care seeker and making it as easy and clear as possible to find that care that they need. And I think that's what was kind of what we really wanted to do for the tone of voice, and even using the blog as kind of an authority build, of just making sure that those misconceptions about looking for care or searching for care are really kind of eased with the content that we're producing.
Love it. Love it. Thanks.
Awesome. I have 2 questions now because Darius was feeding through that. But the first question, just going back to building up your team. Are there any particular soft skills that you look for, especially with such a small startup? Well, not a small startup, but like having a startup and, you know, building your team from that. I can appreciate that, you know, you might be quite particular, or the team might be quite particular in the soft skills that you guys assess for. What are there any particular skills that you look out for, or traits?
I think there's 2 kind of really that I've seen in all the hires that we've kind of seen across even like the SEO and the marketing teams, is that almost kind of willingness to learn and willingness to adapt. You know, we can pivot quite easily, and, you know, it's also having those ideas and having that confidence for the ideas and sharing it. One thing that I've always been really set on, especially kind of, you know, joining Lottie and growing the team, is ensuring there's like a safe space for anyone to kind of share ideas. And I think it's a big culture thing in Lottie where, you know, junior members feel really confident to share ideas with senior management, etc. And that's kind of been something that's been the same across since day one, really. And those are the kind of qualities I'd look for, because, you know, you can teach the basic principles of SEO, of digital PR, but you need that kind of clear communication, that proactiveness to really, you know, go out and kind of adapt, especially in a startup where you may be doing something that's slightly out of the remit of SEO, but supporting kind of the overall brand, etc. So I think it's just making sure that you've got that proactiveness and willingness to learn. I think it really goes a long way.
Awesome. And then the second question I wanted to sort of touch on was, Lottie is sort of falling into a niche sort of topic. How have you found it? Are there any challenges? And we don't have to sort of speak specifically, but I think just for any SEO that's working in such in niche sort of topics, what are some of the challenges that you faced, and also some of like the pros and the positives that you benefit from working in a niche like that?
Amazing. I think there's two sides to it, and especially for the kind of PR and digital PR offering, you know, talking about care homes isn't exactly the most kind of like amazing topic to talk about. However, I think that's where the creativity of digital PR really comes in. Two campaigns that really stick in my head when I kind of think about the challenges of this kind of smaller, more niche sector. We did a campaign earlier last year where we went into care homes and recreated Taylor Swift's album covers with care home residents. So they were dubbed like the senior Swifties of the UK. And it was actually probably one of my favorite days in Lottie, of going in, seeing all these like older adults just, you know, having glitter on their faces, just loving life. And it's almost trying to have that creativity with it. So that's one that definitely stuck. And even seeing them going viral, and we still get messages from the home manager saying, you know, they've almost got like artwork of all in like the care home that they've got. And, you know, we got them in Grazia, Germany, and they just couldn't believe it or anything like that. So I think, you know, trying to kind of have that creativity in a really hard niche is definitely one that is, you know, it hasn't been without its challenges, but there's always a solution. And I think that is definitely my favorite part as well. We even went into another care home and recreated Oscar-winning posters. So one was The Godfather, etc. And even just meeting these kind of care home residents and hearing their stories, it really brings it to life. And it's trying to find that which it'll connect your audience to the wider kind of, you know, sector. And I think that's one thing that we've really been doing well with. I think for SEO, one of the biggest challenges, especially in kind of a niche sector, is there's always going to be that kind of one authority that's kind of been that trusted brand for, you know, however long they've been established. But it's almost ensuring that what we're doing on the website and what we're doing even within like the customer care team at Lottie are really kind of helping care seekers and kind of bringing transparency to that sector, which, you know, that's again a challenge where it's not as kind of transparent as we'd like it to be, but that's what we're kind of showing the value in that user experience and consistency that we need for SEO.
Awesome. Darius, do you want to go? I feel like I've still had a few questions.
Yeah, no, it was more just something that came into my head there. Might not be something that you can actually talk about, Harriet, to be honest, but with Bupa, since we're going through a couple of like contract negotiations and stuff like that at the minute, was there anything to do with like a non-compete or anything that you can't work in that sort of niche for a while? Because obviously they're both quite similar, so I thought there might be a bit of like, not controversy that you left to go to that, but was there anything like that you had to sort of work around, or?
Yeah, no, nothing. I think we did have to, I think my manager had to check it when I kind of said I was leaving and joining Lottie. But I think because they were quite different, obviously Bupa does cover elderly care, but this was kind of a very new and almost unestablished kind of startup that I was leading. So I think there wasn't any kind of like beef, shall we say, of me leaving to Lottie. And I think even now, like, you know, especially I think having like acquaintances in work, etc., is so important. So I'm still very much in touch with like the Boop a lot, and actually we work quite closely together of Booper and Lottie now. So it's quite a nice thing of, you know, even sharing a few things of, oh, I saw this campaign, it was really good, etc. So unfortunately, no beef there.
No tea.
That's healthy. I love that. I wanted to sort of move into the personal branding sort of side of things, which you are smashing at the moment. But just with sort of a transition, has there anything, I mean, considering that you are a manager and that you mentor at Women in Tech SEO, has there been anything or anyone that sort of inspired or motivated your sort of way of managing people and leading people and speaking to people? Or has that just always been like a natural thing that you're blessed with from it?
I think one thing that really kind of started that kind of personal branding, or, you know, that confidence that I had, I reached out to my old university's alumni team a couple of years ago now, and I hadn't done any kind of speaker opportunities before that, or anything. I was kind of new to that kind of personal branding as such, and I found it really useful. I wrote an article about kind of where I am post Warwick University, which really opened the door to a few different things. So obviously it grew my confidence of kind of talking about, actually, I've achieved X, Y, and Z since then, and, you know, kind of almost killing off that imposter syndrome. And it led me in 2023 to deliver one of their graduation ceremony speeches as their guest speaker. So talking to kind of thousands on the stage, which was extremely nerve-wracking. I would not recommend it, but no, it was absolutely brilliant. It was, you know, a really true highlight. So I'd always say, especially, that if anyone's kind of got that imposter syndrome or wants to do more of personal branding, definitely start with something of connecting back to your old university or old college. It'll really kind of open the door for that. And even with the start of like personal branding, even thinking back to Booper, I think using LinkedIn, I kind of didn't really do it religiously, but I'd always share a nice piece of coverage that I got, and it just kind of really helps you get connections out there. And even any big kind of, you know, industry events like Brighton SEO or SEO exclusive, you know, anything like that, where, you know, you can kind of share your insights and key takeaways and tagging the speakers in. It just helps you kind of get that personal branding just from the get-go, really.
Awesome. Perfect. And we sort of love to sort of wrap it up with, I mean, as you are the first guest and we have just kicked off 2025, this is going to be very interesting. But the future of SEO, what do you have in mind for the direction of SEO within 2025? Its relation with DPR as well is going to be quite interesting. And also all of the new sort of advancements with voice search and things like that. Do you have any predictions which we can come back to at the end of the year and say Harriet was right?
I think it's very similar to, you know, probably even what's happening over the last couple of years. All of those basic principles are still so key for search and for users. If you have like a technically sound website, if you're, you know, focusing on the user and not for kind of Google or search engines, and you're getting kind of a steady flow of relevant high authority links, I think that'll really help you get covered in 2025. I think one of the biggest things, especially for 2025, that we're seeing as well, especially across Lottie with SEO and social, is that kind of clear almost like creation of content that will work across all different channels. We're seeing that even the start of kind of earlier last year, where we were creating content for our care seekers just on the blog, there's so much more that you can do with that piece of content. You can put it on TikTok, you can put it on Instagram, you know, leveraging the care experts that we have. And you can also kind of, you know, share it via CRM. So I think it's almost having that not SEO in silo. It's, you know, it's covering all bases and kind of understanding where SEO fits in with the general kind of social CRM general marketing landscape, really.
Awesome. And I just wanted to sort of steal the last question from you in regards to the Women in Tech SEO, that community in particular. Are you still going to be working with them in 2025?
Not 100%. I'm definitely still massive fan, etc. I think the Slack community that they've built is absolutely incredible. And I think, you know, I'll always lean on like the support of that. I might even kind of, you know, sign up to the next cohort of, you know, even being a mentee and not necessarily a mentor to kind of grow that as well. I think there's an opportunity there for, you know, from both sides. I've had a mentor in the past and I've been a mentor. So I think even just keeping that communication, there's so much value that you can get from that. So yeah, fingers crossed and watch this space.
Yeah,
Awesome.
looking forward to it.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, thank you so much, Harriet, for coming on and giving your insights. It was such a lovely episode to start off the year. And also, I know you were just sick, so thank you so much for getting better for the webinar as well. And yeah, thank you everyone for listening in. I will be putting this onto YouTube, so check out our SEO leadership webinar on YouTube as well. And Harriet, I will pop through any links, so if anyone has questions, they will be flooding your DMs for that. Look forward to that in the future.
Amazing.
Cheers.
Awesome. Chat soon.